Welcome to another episode of Opinionated Off Topic. Today I'm with Carlos Mojica, co-owner, co-founder of Opinionated Media. I'm Cam Theory, co-owner, co-founder of Opinionated Media. Today I'm with my good friend Matt Bundy. Met him earlier this year at one of Matt's reveal dinners. Super good experience. Me and him really connected. I connected with him and his buddy Cooper a lot. We kind of talked right off the bat and reached out to him. Seen he's been doing stand-up. He talked to us about doing his stand-up comedy, and it's cool to see someone in the community giving back, doing their shows, and creating content. So we wanted to give him the opportunity today to talk about his story and get to know him a little bit more. So yeah.
What's up, boys?
Yeah,
how you doing?
up?
I actually record this time, so don't
okay. There you go. Yeah. I see you're a Zen guy too over there.
I am a Zen guy.
Are those
my
the new
mic, by the
flavor?
way. Is this close enough?
Yeah, it should be good.
Are those the new flavored ones?
These are citrus.
Citrus. Yeah. I played baseball, but I've never done any sort of tobacco ever.
You didn't dip at all?
No.
And you played baseball?
Yeah.
Damn.
You're a big gum guy though.
I was a big gum and seeds.
Yeah.
Seeds was like my shit. Like Biggs. Do you know sunflower seeds like that? Mm-hmm. So Biggs, dill pickle.
Oh yeah, I like the dill pickle ones too.
And then sea salt and black pepper.
Oh yeah.
Those were my two. Like I have to have them every game. And then gum was. I was like gum younger, but like as I got older, it was like seeds. I don't know why. I think just because it's like you're just doing something the whole time. Like
yeah, you get to spit them out. It's a bit of a it's a power move.
Yeah. But thank you for taking time out your day. It was a long drive for you. For me, that's a long time. So for other people, it's like, I don't mind it. Like I don't like driving anywhere. So thank you for taking time out your day. I appreciate it. But just give us a little backstory where you came from and how you got started to what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Renton, Washington. It's a little town on the southern border of Seattle. So basically Seattle area, but there's always that one person who I say I'm from Seattle. They're actually from Seattle. And they're like, what part? And I'm like, Renton. And then it's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's like us. We're from, sorry to cut you off, but we're from like Pflugerville. And it's like, we typically say we're from Austin because nobody knows where Pflugerville is. So it's just easier to say it. I'm sure for you, it's like easier to say, oh, I'm from Seattle. Like, oh, I'm from Austin. Then they're like, oh, what part? I'm just like, oh, Pflugerville. Like, that's not Austin.
Definitely. I had a girl once be like, you want to come back to my place? It's in like North Austin. And it was a Pflugerville address. And I was like, it's not happening.
But yeah, originally from?
Yeah, so originally from Washington. I moved to California when I was 18. And that basically for college, but I dropped out of college pretty quickly. And I went back to Washington for a little bit to save up money to move to LA. So I just got a job, was working a lot, getting ready to go there. And I went to LA for a acting and modeling competition that my agency sent me to. And basically everyone went back to Washington at the end of the competition. And I was like, nah, I'm staying here. I bought a car, found a place to live. And I was doing the acting grind out there, very hard for 3.5 years and doing a lot of sketch comedy, live performances. So I was in a sketch group and there was probably 10 of us and we would do these live shows every month. And I never with acting really felt like that was fully the thing I was supposed to be doing. I knew it was close to what I was supposed to be doing, but it just never really hit the way I always thought it would eventually. And I don't mean hit in a success thing. I mean hit made me feel good doing it. And a lot of my friends encouraged me to try stand-up. I've been a huge stand-up fan since I was a kid. And finally, I never thought I was funny outside of making my friends laugh or outside of sketches that I wrote. And so finally I tried an open mic, and the second I got on stage, I just got this wave of calm wash over me. And it was God was this is what you are supposed to be doing. And I actually got booked off of a show based on that open mic. And after that, I just was obsessed with it. It's just all I've thought about since. That was 4 years ago.
Damn. So growing up, did you do any acting or anything? Or is that just something you found later in life that you wanted to do?
I did a couple plays as a little kid. I actually, it's kind of funny. I auditioned for a child agency, and my best friend and my sister did it with me, and they didn't get in. So my mom told me I didn't get in so they wouldn't feel bad. And she also, I don't think she wanted me to be a child actor, which is very smart of her. I barely made it through high school. It would have been rough if I was a child actor.
Yeah. Especially like if you were to be famous, like we see it all the time with like Michael Jackson, Justin Bieber, Johnny Manziel, like people who are like famous at a young age, like later in life, it just kind of gets to you because you don't know how to handle it and you're so young.
Yeah.
And you don't live a normal kid life either.
Yeah, and I had a bad enough drug problem when I was younger without being famous. I didn't need anything to add to that fire.
Yeah. So you go to LA, pursue like acting and whatnot, and then stand up comes into your life as well. Because earlier you said that from when you were a young age, like stand up was always something that you liked. Were you just going home watching Comedy Central? Because you mentioned Eli earlier. We had him on, and that's what he would do. Like after school, he would go home and just watch Comedy Central because he just loved comedy.
Yeah, I watched a lot of Comedy Central, and then I remember the first time I was really like in awe of stand-up. I think I was probably in 4th grade, and maybe a little older than 4th grade. But basically, my friend was like, "Hey, dude, you know who Dave Chappelle is?" And I was like, "No, who's that?" And he's like, "We got to go on YouTube." And he typed in Dave Chappelle's Sesame Street bit from Killing Them Softly. And at that point in my life, that was the hardest I had ever laughed at anything in my entire life. I replayed the "bitch, I live in a fucking trash can" like 85 times in a row, just lost my shit, and then watched the entire special and was like, this is the coolest fucking thing in the world. And so that was like my big introduction to stand-up, I would say.
Yeah, my dad liked comedy, but like, not that I didn't like it, but I never like, oh, I'm just gonna go to Comedy Central. But my first like introduction to comedy was probably like the kings of comedy, like D.L. Hughley, Bernie Mac, and John Witherspoon.
Everybody Hates Chris, like the shows and stuff. That's kind of like
well, no, not the shows, but like them doing
just them doing stand-up in
because
general,
that's like my dad's like an older. He likes the 90s rap and like just the older stuff. He's an old head. And that's what I grew up on when I did hear it. And then like I was young when I heard it, so I didn't really like pay attention to it. And then when we're in middle school, everybody was talking about Kevin Hart. And then I saw Kevin Hart stand up. And that's when I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. This is funny. And then I started checking out other people. And that was like my first like form into comedy was like really Kevin Hart, even though I heard it earlier, but it was really Kevin Hart.
Yeah, Kevin Hart was great. I watched him definitely when I was younger, and like Cat Williams. I remember kind of that generation of guys coming up. Well, Cat Williams was already up, but
yeah,
I found out about him the same time. But
I found out about Cat Williams maybe the same time, maybe earlier, but I just remember the one that I always watched was like, what was he talking about? He like ate the kids' cereal when he got too high, and he was like, oh. He was like, they damn sure they steal all the cereal or whatever. But he was the one who ate it. And I was that one. And then it was just Kevin Hart after that. I'm pretty sure. When did you like? What was like?
Yeah, for me, I mean, to be honest, I probably got into comedy later than most. Like, which I would say recently, and I think it's been more so because of like us doing like the podcasting. Like I think, like Theo Vaughn. Like I knew he was a comedian, but I didn't get into like watching any of his stand-up or anything until I started watching his podcast, because I was like, oh, this is funny. Like, he's hilarious. The way he's interviewing people is hilarious. Like, oh, he's a comedian. Let me dive down that rabbit hole. And then even now with, like, comedy, which we'll get into, but, like, the Drewski skits, like, the Desi Banks skits, like, the stuff on, like, Instagram or TikTok, that's kind of, like, how I'll, like, consume comedy. Like, I haven't really got a chance to dive into stand-up except, what's his name? He had like a stand-up special in Austin. I forget his name. It's
Shane
like,
Gillis.
bro, that's like the funniest
Shane
thing.
Gillis is funny.
That's like the funniest thing I've ever seen. Like, I'm not even
he's
lying.
hilarious.
Okay, Shane's one of my favorite comedians. Since he just had a new special come out about a month or 6 weeks ago, I have probably had 25 people in the past month be like, dude, this one guy's special. I'm like, Shane Gillis. Like, yeah, how'd you know?
Bro, he has really great delivery on his stand-ups. Really great. And he sets up his next jokes really well.
Have you seen his sketches?
I haven't, but
dude.
I'll have to dive into those.
So season 1 is on YouTube, and then season 2 is behind a paywall. It's worth the paywall. His sketches are, I haven't seen anything like it since Chappelle's show.
Really?
Mm-hmm. He has this one about Trump speed dating, and it is.
So it's funny that you bring up him because I'm a big gamer and I was watching somebody game today, and he's a big comedy guy, and that's his favorite comedian. And I haven't heard the Trump one, but he like tried to look it up on YouTube, but he couldn't find it, and he was like, "It's probably not here for a good reason."
Yeah. He might have the best. Him and Jamie Foxx are probably tied for the best Trump impression out there.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't watch it, but on satellite radio, my dad would always listen to the Jamie Foxx show, and that was just nothing but stand up. So I got a lot of stand up from that too. Wanda was another funny one. I like Wanda a lot.
Oh, Wanda Sykes.
Yeah. She's funny.
She's hilarious on Curb Your Enthusiasm. You ever seen that show? Oh, it's Larry David, the Seinfeld creator. He has his show, and everyone besides him basically plays themselves. And she has like this beef with Larry all the time, calling him like racist. It's so funny.
That's funny. Yeah, she's really good too. And it's what. So you said it came natural to you, like it came natural because like doing stand up's really, really, really hard. It's not just like you can't just stand up there and tell jokes.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it came natural to me. I had the privilege of my first set going a lot better than most people's first set goes. But I think that actually probably hurt me in my first year. Because then I'm like, oh man, nobody gets booked on a show after their first time doing an open mic. I must be really fucking good at this.
Yeah.
And then, bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb. And just being like, oh shit, I'm not even an infant right now. Like, stand up is still pregnant with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm a baby,
yeah.
and I have so much to learn.
Yeah. What is it that like makes stand up so hard? Because I mean, you could be funny and tell jokes, but like that's not everything.
Yeah, it's the best analogy I've heard about it is Andrew Schultz once said, it's like playing basketball, but the hoop is always changing every shot. And I think that is such an accurate way to put it because, like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And you can come up and you can think you have, the hottest shit in the world. And there are just so many elements that can go wrong. And yeah, there's a million different things you always kind of have to be conscious of, but then you also have to like drop all of that because you need to be present with the audience. And it's interesting.
I'm assuming like the hoops would be the audience.
Yeah.
Because they're always changing. So like for people who don't know you or like never heard of you, how do you like win an audience over? Because like we know the Shanes, we know the Kevins, we know the Cats, we know all them. And you're automatically going to laugh because you just know that they're funny. Even if the joke's not funny, you're still going to laugh because they're funny. Well, that just, you know them to be funny, so you're going to laugh. So how do you win like a crowd over?
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, sometimes I don't.
Yeah, because it's hard.
Yeah, sometimes I don't. But for the most part, I think the biggest thing is being as present as you can with them and really trying to be as authentically you as you can be, because people know when they're being bullshitted and they hate it. So like, and that doesn't mean everything you have to say is true. I mean, I'm the very politically incorrect comedian. Almost everything that comes out of my mouth isn't like, true necessarily. But if you're coming at it from a place of, you're being yourself behind it, and it's not like you're being some like annoying character that you think the audience wants you to be, I think that is the best way to connect with an audience.
So like when you're up there, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't cut you off.
I kinda cut you off,
Go for it.
There are people who are characters also.
Yeah.
Who's a good example of that? Andrew Dice Clay. He used to do a bunch of different characters. He has a different government name. And then the Dice Man was the character that just took off. And so he just decided that's my act now. But that's still him to an extent.
Yeah. Who's the guy with the puppet? What's his name? He has like him, and then he's like has a puppet. I can't remember his name.
Last name starts with a D. Oh my god, I've seen so much of his stuff. He has like Ahmed the Terrorist, right?
I don't know I just know he has. I don't know exactly the puppet. I just know that growing up there, I don't think it's.
Something
Out in
Dunham,
the
I
chairs.
think.
Yes. He would.
Starts with a K. Something Dunham.
Jeff Dunham.
Jeff
Jeff
Dunham.
Dunham,
Yes. Yeah. He was pretty funny too.
Yeah, I used to watch him a lot when I was younger because my grandma loves him.
Loved him.
She thinks, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. My question was gonna be, like, if you're up there telling jokes, because I'm sure you probably prep or whatever's going on in the world or whatever's current or whatever you're feeling. But I guess, for example, your scripts, like if you have a script, you know, like I got to get to these 5 jokes and I know these are gonna bang. So they don't bang. Like, what do you do as a curveball when you're like live on stage?
Oh man. Sometimes I'll try and do crowd work, engage the audience a little bit. People really like to feel like they're a part of the show, and I get it. I mean, that's the funnest part of a show a lot of times. Matt Rife is a great example of that. All he posts is crowd work because he doesn't want to burn material, and it makes the show significantly more fun for people. He's also great at it. It's really hard to do crowd work at the level that he's doing it at. But I would say, yeah, just not being afraid to pivot and just kind of be in the moment. The worst is when a joke starts falling flat and you're not even halfway through the setup. But sometimes I've had some incidences where a joke wasn't landing and I probably did, it was like a 2.5, 3 minute long joke. I probably did 2 minutes and 15 seconds with just no laughter. But then when I finally got to the punchline at the very end, it just like erupted the place. So sometimes, you know, you just got to stick to your guns and it will work out.
Is there like ever considered anything like a joke to be too long? Is there like a time frame that you kind of want to keep it in to keep the retention of the audience?
No, I mean, Dave Chappelle has some jokes that are a good 20 minutes long. I think it just depends on what your style is. People will invest a lot longer in a story than they will in just like jokes.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you're a storyteller, shit, if you can make your entire act a story and make it funny, go for it.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense.
Yeah.
The I can't remember what you said when you did the crowd people. Like, is that like just finding somebody in the audience and like picking on them?
Yeah, not necessarily picking on them. Just
That's what. Yeah,
talking
not
to them.
yeah, talking to them.
Sometimes you pick on them.
Yeah.
I only really pick on people if they do something blatantly rude. Unless they want it. Some people want to be roasted. That's fun too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always makes for a good laugh for everybody, even the person. Because I mean, some people do like to be roasted, and then some people who don't. But like at the end of the day, it's still funny. Like if you're getting roasted, it sucks you're getting roasted if you don't like it, but it's still funny. And at the end of the day, like you don't mean anything by it. You're just hey,
yeah, as
you're
long
just
as you can tell it
Yeah.
comes from a good place.
Have you ever dealt with people like, and because I always tell people, they're like, oh, that was like out of line. I'm like, it's comedy, you know, like there's obviously, yes, there's probably is a line, but it's like, you just know when it's like crossing it or when it's not crossing it. Have you, what was it?
Oh no! Oh, I wasn't. Oh, I had something in my head. But I wasn't trying to say anything.
Oh no!
But I was gonna say, like, I feel like there isn't a line with comedy.
There is and there isn't. Like,
I feel like if you're going to a comedy show, you can't go in there and like get offended.
that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't go in there and get offended. But I definitely do think like it's hard to explain. That's why I'm asking him that. Like, do you think when you like do a comedy show or whatever, and you're like saying specific jokes or you know saying specific things, do you ever come back and like, dang, that was like a little out of pocket? Do you ever think like that? Or is there ever people at your shows that might like, I don't know, say something about it being out of pocket or whatever?
I've never really had anybody like during my show be like, that's wrong. I've had people, cross their arms.
Yeah.
People get up and like storm out, but I've never really, fortunately, had someone like really come at me.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will happen eventually.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there's anything you can't make a joke about.
For sure.
There is definitely a line of society, and there needs to be for there to be comedy. Like most of what comedy is pushing back, and so there's nothing to push back against. There's nothing to really, make funny. But there have been times where, so I have this one joke I'm working on right now, and it's like very delicate subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in its infant stages, and I'm really trying to work it out. And there's been some times where I've been like, okay, there is definitely a more delicate way to say that.
Yeah.
When the subject's not going to change, the point of view is not going to change, but there's a fine line between being funny and edgy and just bullying
Yeah,
a group of people.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I feel like like I said, if you're going to a comedy show, you can't get offended because, like, at the end of the day, comedy is mainly derogatory.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't, if you're going to a show, you have to expect that and can't get offended. The only way I would say you should get offended if it's like literally directed at you. Like if the comedian is looking at you and talking to you and direct at you. That's like, I feel like the only like boundary. Other than that, I personally feel like it's free game just because like, that's comedy.
That, or I feel like if the comedian is like he was saying earlier, is like only like targeting a specific subject or group of people, then I feel like, all right, that's coming off a certain way. But if it's like, everyone can get it type deal, which I feel like is how it should be, then I think it's probably good.
And I feel like for the most part, it typically is everyone can get it. I haven't heard like many comic shows where it's directed at one, I guess we'll just say like race or whatever. And if it is, it's typically that same race that the comedian is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like it's if you're going to a show, it's just it's fair game.
Yeah. That's one thing I love so much about Austin is the people here are just comedy fans and they know you're joking. And so they will let you get away with a lot of stuff, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. And well, I also, like I said, I grew up on like older generation comedy and older generation everything. You're able to say a lot more stuff than today's generation just because
like
everybody is quote unquote soft.
And you can get
You
canceled.
aren't though.
Yeah.
I mean, Lenny Bruce is like the godfather of like the type of comedy that we all love. He used to get arrested for his sets.
Really?
Yeah, he used to straight up get arrested because back then there were actually things you could not say on a stage.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Dang, did not know that.
I did not know that either.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, going through like some of your content and things like that, like with the skits and all that, I mentioned earlier, that's like really kind of how I like got into comedy, is just like, being on like newer generation, just seeing like skits, all that kind of stuff. And your skits are just hilarious because you touch on so many things and it's like current. You like, it's a current event. It's like, oh, I'm going to hit it right now. But I guess like, how do you go about, putting out content and like your skits as opposed to like saving that for, though this is probably better for like a show or in person kind of joke?
That's a really good question. So whenever I come up with an idea, my first thought is, do I think this is a sketch or do I think it's a joke? Usually it's pretty easy to differentiate. Like, usually I'm pretty good at differentiating, but sometimes I'll like get like halfway through writing something and I'm like, this would work so much better if I could just make it a sketch, or vice versa. I have been right about to film a sketch once and I was like, this is going to be a bit. And then I just was like comedy always, like stand up always comes first.
Yeah.
So then I just had to call my camera guy and be like, we're pushing back 2 hours. Like I got to write something new.
Yeah.
How do you balance the two? Because it's on your YouTube, it's a new video every Tuesday. And I'm assuming that's from the sketches. So how do you go about like balancing like, all right, here's an idea for a sketch and like, here's an idea for my stand-up? Because stand-up typically does take longer just because you write a whole set versus like a sketch is like, here's 2 minutes.
Yeah. So you're saying, how do I differentiate?
How do you balance the two? Because it's like you spend all this time like, all right, I'm gonna spend all this time working on a sketch, but you can't think of anything. So here you go. There's 3 hours out the window, and then like, all right, I'm gonna spend all this time working on a stand-up, and there's like, oh, there's 6 hours out the window.
Yeah.
So like, how do you balance? Do you have like specific days set where like this day is prioritized for 10 sketches, and then this day is prioritized for just my stand-up?
Yeah, so one thing I'm fortunate about with sketches is I'm a procrastinator. And so sometimes it's just like, shit, I got to film a sketch this afternoon. Start writing, motherfucker. And so, when you have a deadline like that, it makes it a lot easier. But I would say I spend a lot more time on my stand-up stuff. I'm also a lot more comfortable with like really, I'll write stand-up jokes all day and then decide I'm not going to use any of them. And I'm a lot more comfortable for some reason doing that than I am with like writing sketches that I don't think are going to go anywhere. Yeah, usually it's pretty clear when I come up with the idea. And once I've like pictured what I want from it, I know I'm like, okay, this is a sketch idea. So then I have like this big list of sketch ideas that I have. And every week I'll go through and write a couple of those and then film one. But I would say the sketches come to me a lot quicker, like writing wise. So I would say there's like a couple days a week where I'm usually like designated. This has to be about writing sketches. But for the most part, I'm really just thinking about like stand-up stuff.
Gotcha. Because Eli, he does like just different skits too, but he does it just like on the fly. He doesn't write anything. He doesn't prepare or anything. He just, all right, well, record, here goes nothing.
Yeah, I've done a few of those. So usually what I'll do is I'll write half, improvise the other half. There's been a couple that, you know, every single word I wrote was the only thing that made it on screen. And then there's been a couple where I didn't write anything and we just roll the camera and just, you know, see what sticks. One of my sketches, this actually turned out to be one of my favorite ones, but I didn't even have an idea that week. I was having a horrible week. I meet up with my camera guy and I'm just like banging my head against the wall. I like don't really know what to do. And he's like, should we cancel? I'm like, no, we can't cancel. We have to, you know, I have to put something out every week. And basically he looks at me, he's like, what about like a yoga teacher who wants to fuck your wife? And that was just like a jump off moment
that one
for
was
me.
hilarious.
And I was like, I ripped my shirt off and I was like, roll the camera. I know exactly what we are doing with this. It helps that I've taken a lot of yoga classes, so I know what it looks like.
So when you first started doing comedy, was content creation ever in the picture? Or is it just like I'm just focusing on comedy, like doing stand-ups?
Eventually, it definitely was. One thing I still want to do in the future is find a director who's like very like-minded with me and write and produce like my own movies to be in. If I had to choose between movies or comedy, I'm choosing comedy. But it'd be awesome to do both. So that was always in mind for me. And I always knew I would probably post sketches in the future just because it was such a part of my life when I was in that group where we were performing. But I didn't really know how that was going to look. And then the reason I started making sketches is about 3 years into doing comedy, so a little over a year ago. Nothing was moving for me the way I wanted it to move. And I remember, I probably mentioned Andrew Schultz 100 times since we started this episode, but you know, he's one of my favorites. And I've gotten a lot of advice from just listening to what he's done with his career. And he mentioned how he wasn't really getting booked where he wanted to get booked and things weren't happening the way he wanted them to happen. So he posted a clip every week for a year. And then he never really stopped after that. But that was the original goal. And I was working this job that was making me absolutely miserable. And I remember thinking, I'm like, I cannot post stand-up clips every week for a year right now. I would burn through all of my material in like a couple of months. And then what am I even getting people to come to shows for? Because I'd have nothing. And so I made this one sketch. And I remember thinking, I'm like, if this gets 1,000 views, I'm going to be so happy. And I'm going to keep making videos. It got like 20,000 views.
Yeah. And
I basically at that moment was just like, okay, I'm making a sketch every week for a year. And that was like 70-ish weeks ago. And now I'm getting to the point where I am ready to start posting stand-up. I'm not going to do it as frequently as my sketch videos, but I'm thinking like at least one video a month. I'm taping all my shows now, so if there's ever a crowd work moment that I know can't be recreated, that's going straight up on my page. And I'm really trying to start making stand-up a lot bigger part of my content. Because one thing I will run into is like, I use my sketches to promote shows, and then people will come to my shows and be like, that's so cool that you just started doing stand-up. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, 2 questions. One, was it hard for you to like do content in the sketches? And 2, do you ever get like, I guess, writer's block, if you will?
So what was the first question again?
How was it hard for you to like start doing content creation, basically, or is this something that's like you were just good at?
It's definitely something that It's hard, but I felt like for so many years I had been doing so much acting and sketch writing and stand-up that it really prepared me for being able to just like churn out material quickly. And once I got past like that like 6 or 7 week mark where I had like, this is just a part of my week. Every week we are doing this, no matter what I think of the final product, it's going up there. Once it, you know, really became a habit, now it's just like, it almost kind of feels like second nature a little bit. I still put a lot of work into like the writing and performing, but it's a lot easier just knowing it's something that's a non-negotiable for me. I definitely get writer's block.
Yeah.
I get writer's block all the time. And one of my favorite sketches I've done was a week where I had horrible writer's block. And so I did a sketch called What It Looks Like to Have Writer's Block. And it was just my camera guy on me while I was just losing my shit in the living room. Like, what do I do? Like, it was really fun.
That's probably how it is, because we've had artists on and they talk about, well, we asked them about writer's block, and some of them just, they're like, oh, I just walk away and then I come back like X amount of hours later, days later. Some people were just like, I just try to listen to different stuff and just put something down. So what is something that you do to like get out of it?
There's a really, Ernest Hemingway is one of my favorite authors. And he mentioned something, and he has a book where it's literally just about his life when he was in his mid-20s living in Paris. And he was talking about how he never stops writing until he knows what's going to happen next. So that when he goes to write the next day, he's got something to jump off with. The hardest part of writing is that initial creating something out of nothing. So when you know where something's going and you take a break, it's a lot easier to come back to it. I've been reading Rick Rubin's book lately. Have you guys heard about his new book?
I haven't heard about his new book, but that's my guy. I like his quotes. He has his podcast is pretty cool too, the Tetragram or whatever. But no, I haven't heard about his book.
So it's called The Creative Act, and it's all about the entire creative process. And he puts it into terms where, you know, you could be a comedian and read it. You can be an entrepreneur and read it. You can be an actor, musician, because he works with such a variety of artists and he has so many friends who are in different fields. And so that has been a really great book for me on really like solidifying a process. And it's also got just some practical tools to help you get through stuff.
That's dope. I guess doing consecration and putting a video out every week. You see, I guess, like people like Drewski and what's his name? Desi Banks?
Desi Banks.
Who do skit. And that's what like blew them up and then went to stand up. Is that something you see yourself doing, or is it like you would rather just do stand up, and the skits are just part of it?
Yeah, the skits are really just to have another creative outlet and, you know, to make people have awareness about me and to build more of a following so that I can sell tickets. I think I definitely had a fear. Part of the reason it took me so long to start making sketches is I had a fear that I wasn't going to be respected by other comedians and that they were going to think that I was just the content creator guy who's now giving stand-up a try. And it was actually when I saw his interview with Trevor Wallace and I found out, I thought he was one of those guys. I thought he was someone who just like made sketches and then all of a sudden started doing comedy. He was doing comedy way before he ever made a sketch. And that kind of gave me the green light of like, okay, I can do this and still be respected by my peers.
Yeah, because when I first saw like Trevor Wallace and stuff, I just thought he was, like you said, just like a sketch guy, because, you know, that's kind of like blew up, and then he like transitioned in and brought it back. And I feel like there's so many ways to do that in any kind of, you know, creation way. Like maybe you start off as a stand-up person, but especially now with social media and the internet, you have to kind of take advantage of your resources. You can put out these sketches or skits and they can go blow up, and then these people's like, oh, he's funny, like let me go to the show now, as opposed to it's like you've been doing shows though, so they're like, oh, like he's good at stand-up. It's like, yeah, because I've been doing this too, you know. So it's cool to see that.
I was gonna ask you, because I don't know if you went, but you went to the Drewski show.
Yeah, I did.
Is his like live show like a stand-up, or is it more like a show?
I would say it's kind of a mixture of both. Like obviously, you know, he has his main acts or whatever like go before him, and then he like does his show. I think it was different because this was the first one, and obviously he has this Could Have Been Records series on YouTube where he like has people audition almost like American Idol type deal, and I think that's like super creative. But It's very similar to that kind of because like I mean a lot of the people that were actually there were people we knew from the podcast that were like going on as acts, but it's kind of like a show, I think. But I think that was just like a chapter of his stand up. I think he like started it with that, and then probably when he goes on tour again, it will be completely different. You know,
You think he'll do like straight stand up?
I don't think he'll ever do straight stand up because I just think the way he is and like I just don't think that's like his lane. Like I'm not saying he can't do it, but I just don't think that's like his lane.
Stand up is hard. Like it's probably the hardest form of comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes your audience doesn't necessarily. If you're somebody who did he do stand up before he started?
No, that's another thing.
No, that was the thing.
so-
He blew up off of like making videos.
Chances are his audience wants to see him more just being a character on stage.
That's
and
true.
Like wiling out than necessarily doing stand up. There's this one girl, and I forgot her name. I really wish I could remember it because she's really funny. And my friend took me to her show, and she does stand up. And then she started doing these online videos where I forgot the character, but it was like a rich golf mom, and those videos are like what like really propelled her career as a stand-up. So what she did, and this is really smart, she did her hour act, and then she was like, "I have a friend who's gonna come out and do some time," and she said the name of her character, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" So then she went backstage, got on the costume, and then came out, and I thought that was a really good blend of both worlds, and I kind of went with like a little bit of an attitude because I was like, I don't know. I was like, oh, is this just like one of those content creators who like started doing comedy super late? And then I realized through watching her, like, no, this is a legit fucking stand-up. She's really done the work. And now she just has this character that's blown up, and that's amazing for her.
Yeah.
That's how she got eyeballs on her.
Do you, with your like skits, do you ever try to collab with anybody? Like have other comedians be in it?
Yeah. Right now, I mainly, if I need other people, I usually just get some of my like buddies, but I really want to start doing videos with more comedians, especially because if I was doing these videos in LA, I know so many actors there that I could constantly get people. But I like working with comics, like mainly because they can just riff and they're funny. And so actually one of my friends is a really funny stand-up around town, and me and her are going to start doing some content together and doing more like long form sketches. I'm actually working on one that we're going to film in the next couple of weeks. I'm really excited for it. And we're going to get some other comedians to be in it also. And I would love to expand out and start doing like bigger pieces with more hilarious people.
The reason I asked that is because, you know, RDC World, The Supreme Dreams, Mark Phillips.
I'm not sure.
They'll do like the videos of like, and it's like, it
You've
was
probably
kind of,
seen them.
yeah, it's kind of like centered off sports and stuff, but like, it'll be like after, for example, if LeBron James was playing the NBA Finals, they would like immediately post a video if like LeBron's team lost, and it would be like LeBron in the locker room, and then he would like have his friends, and they would be like the other players and stuff. Have you seen those?
I think I know.
Yeah. So they were kind of
This guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Did they do that one about the Amber Alert?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
funny.
So the
bro.
reason I asked that is because they live in Austin.
They do.
They do.
Yes,
Yeah,
they live in Round Rock. I'm
Round
pretty
Rock
sure.
area.
But and he's a really dope guy. He's really genuine. He goes like a lot of his skits are in public and in like public gyms, and then where he works out at is I can tell you off camera because I don't want everybody going there.
Yeah.
But one of our friends went there and met him, and he gave him 2 tickets to his. Comic-Con.
Yeah, he has a
Or
DreamCon.
DreamCon.
It's a convention every year that has a bunch of content creators. It's in Austin. They've
Like big names like
Yeah,
Kai Cenat.
When is it?
it was earlier this
I
summer.
think it's coming up in December.
No, it was in the summer. It already
Or
happened.
tickets are on sale in December.
Yeah, so
something like that.
It
Or
happened
December.
it happened this summer. It used to be in Dallas, but they moved it to Austin. And we plan on hopefully going at some point because one of our friends, Peyton, the You Should Know podcast, which is kind of something I wanted to bring up too with you, because we talked about something off camera. Like they are good friends with him, and then like they went to his event. And kind of going into my next question or point is, you had mentioned, if you want to get into it, you had mentioned off camera that you're kind of, since you wanted to start collabing, you want to start like a podcast and kind of go down that lane because, you know, Theo Vaughn, I know Trevor Wallace has a podcast. Like, what's the Asian guy and
Bobby Lee.
yeah, like
and Andrew
yeah,
Santino.
like they have a podcast. And then what's the other one where they cook? Oh, what is
Something's
that?
Burning.
Yeah, Something's Burning.
So Bert Kreischer
Yeah.
and Andrew Schultz are my two favorite comedians of all
Okay.
time.
Yeah, because it's like, and like seeing like kind of like that long forms, like for example, the podcast, but even like Something's Burning, like that long form scripted content. And then I mentioned my friends Peyton and Cam, like they started a podcast where he was just kind of just telling like skits directly to the camera. Like he had like off center and he was like talking to a wall and he would just tell stories about his life. Blew up over time. Like people thought he was hilarious. And then he ended up bringing his friend in as a co-host. And then now they do, they have like a live show now and that now they're like comedians, but it started off as just like a podcast. So I'm curious to hear like your thought process on like getting into that long form content too.
Yeah. So what do you mean by long form content? Like
So like,
podcasting?
yeah, like podcasting or just anything where it's like, I wouldn't say it's like a stand-up show, but it's like Something's Burning, something like creative with a creative outlet, but
Yeah.
but it's got your comic centric values in it.
Yeah, so I am definitely trying to start a podcast soon. And there's two things I really need to start it. One, I want to have a co-host who's also a comedian who I feel like I have a really good rapport with. Because a lot of my favorite podcasts are, like Bert Kreischer, for example, has Two Bears, One Cave with Tom Segura. And that is like so funny. I would definitely want to get guests on too. But so finding that person who I really like click with, and I think we could make like, we have great conversations off camera. And if we put the camera on us, conversation wouldn't change. But
Yeah.
it's just as entertaining. And then I also, because of shows like Something Burning, and there's so many podcasts out there, I would love to find like a creative way to do the podcast.
Yeah.
So like David Lucas has one now where he takes people fishing. That's such a great
No.
thing because you're fishing, and so you can have a full-blown conversation, and it's not going to be too distracting.
Yeah.
Man, that's cool.
No, it's good.
Yeah, so just if I could find something along those
Yeah.
lines, that would be a really great way to do it. But I definitely do want to start a podcast.
Yeah, it's cool that you mentioned that, like making it different, you know, and making it unique. Because I feel like nowadays with podcasting and you know the way it is, I feel like you have to kind of change it up. Like one of my favorite content creators, he started a podcast recently called Around the Bar, and it's like him having a drink with someone, but it's like their specific favorite drink. It's not like Drink Champs where there's like 8,000 bottles on the table and they're just taking shots of whatever, you know? So I feel like that's cool just to, I was just curious to hear that just from like another creator to another, just like what's your take on that? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think Drink Champs is one of the greatest ideas for a show ever.
Yeah.
They are so entertaining.
And they're so long and you're like, 3 hours. Like you're not even phased by it
Yeah.
at all.
Next time they have someone I really like on there, I think I'm gonna get some boys together and be like, "Yo, let's drink with them."
Yeah. No, honestly, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I haven't really watched too much of them. I mean, it's actually I meant to tell you this, but even though I do a podcast, I don't really watch too much or listen to too much podcast. But I did catch up on a lot of podcasts today.
I feel like that happens when you're really immersed in something. When you have time away from it, you almost don't want to like watch that thing. You want to like.
Well, that's all he like. He doesn't even because he was he still is a big music guy, but he doesn't even really listen to music anymore. Just straight nothing but like podcasts.
Yeah, and I think the reason why like that's helped like me a lot is because I work from home a lot and I'm an accountant is my day job. So like my work is pretty like, you know, repetitive. It's like very monotonous, same shit over and over again. So for me, I just like to learn. And then I think that I'm interested in so many different things. And now with, you know, the internet and whatever, there's so many different topics of whatever you're interested in. There's probably a podcast for it and probably a good podcast. So I'll like go from listening to sports shows to, you know, a Theo Vaughn podcast to like a gaming podcast to a music podcast. So I don't know. I feel like, and it's also helped me, you know, come up with ideas too for like our other shows we have within our media company, like little segments like, hey, we should do like a tier talk. Like obviously you can talk about anything, but it's like if I ask you, hey, what's your favorite 4 cereals? Like you can start a discussion with something as general as that. So just learning different stuff and just trying to evolve, you know. Like,
Yeah, because we listen to the same gaming podcast, but the last episode at the Hex quarters, it was literally nothing but like
they were just chopping it
up and talking about like dreams and like their nightmares, but like having lucid dreams and control of their nightmares and like remembering everything and like it was just like okay, but like you I listened to it because it was entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys know who Jimmy Tatro is?
Who?
I don't.
Jimmy Tatro. So you've probably seen him in a lot of movies lately. He started off as like the frat bro guy in college who would make these like super fratty sketches. And one thing him and his partner did that was really smart, I think, is once every couple months they released a video called Drunk Questions. And it's just them answering questions from fans getting drunk. And it is such a good idea. The videos are usually like 20 or 30 minutes long, and it gives people like that longer form way of kind of getting to know them without them feeling like they have to do like a podcast episode every week or something like that.
Yeah.
Even then, it's like stuff like that. It's like 20, 30 minutes is a long time to listen to something straight because people's attention span just nowadays is just short.
Yeah.
That's why short form content is such a big thing. But if you have something that's like easy to listen to and get your attention and is funny, it's you can't go wrong with that. And that's such a good idea to do that because I mean, drunk tweets?
Drunk questions.
Drunk questions, like I mean, we're all old enough, we all drink, so it's like we'll always ask dumb stuff when we're drunk or say dumb stuff when we're drunk. So like you can like also relate to it as well.
Yeah. So I have a couple ideas like that I've wanted to get off the ground. One thing, and I won't tell you guys exactly what it is until we're off camera.
Yeah.
But it's a segment I want to do on my podcast that not a lot of people do, and I think it would be very entertaining as part of the podcast.
Yeah.
But another thing I want to do, and I'll say this out loud because if somebody wants to sponsor these videos and invest.
No facts.
It's a segment. It would probably be like 20 or 30 minute long thing where I get like another comic or like someone I'm friends with to come and, we kind of talk the whole time, but it's called Baked Baking. So I suck at baking. Only thing I can really cook are steak and eggs. And so I think it'd be really fun for me to like take a bunch of bong rips or like take a bunch of edibles and then have this complicated ass baking recipe that I have to make while I'm like talking to the person. They can help me. They can also be baked.
Yeah.
I think that would just
That'd
be
be
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that.
Because that was one of my questions was, how do you make yourself stand out, differentiate yourself from like other people who are doing podcasts or other people who are doing skits or other people who are doing stand up? Like, how do you get them to like, look at me, don't look at him?
I think, one really important frame of mind is to realize that there is enough of the pie for everybody. So you can look at him too, but there's enough room for people to still look at me, if that makes sense. I think the more true you are to your point of view, the more people gravitate towards that. So like, this is going to sound kind of corny, but the only way to separate yourself is to be yourself, And it's true. Like, it's very true. If you're someone who's authentically you, your people.
That's what people like the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I was actually listening to The Pivot, which is another podcast I like, and they had Gilly the Kid on it, and he's a co-host of $1 Million Worth of Game. It's Gilly and Wallow.
That's a great show.
Yeah, I love that show. Like, amazing. And like he was talking on it about Wallow because he was like, oh, Wallow gets out of jail. He tries to do things the right way and get on social media and just like, oh, well, you need to do this and that. And then Gilly was like, nah, like you got to give them who you are. And then he was like, first time I told him that, he does push-ups outside in the rain. It's like, get up, like get your ass up. Like if you're not getting up, like you're not making no money, like that type of stuff. And he posted that video and it got like 20 million views on IG. And then from there, he just was more authentically himself. And that's what I tell him too, and me and like everyone that we work with. It's like, we have to learn how to be like more ourselves, but also not like break our professionalism. And it kind of stems with like us doing stuff like this, like more of the formal interviews. But now we're getting into some additional shows that are, we can be more loose and, we're not like a lot of times, like shout out to Carlos. Cause I mean, he's meeting you for the first time, meeting him for the first time, but a lot of the guests, like he'll be meeting them for the first time. So he has to like be in a certain, until you get to like give a vibe and know the person. But it's definitely one of those things where you don't want to be too robotic, but you need to have your character show too,
Yeah, I'd say about 90% of the time, it's my first time meeting the guys. Probably more than that, actually. Like 95.
Cool. Probably makes it, do you think that makes it easier or harder to ask questions?
Harder. Yeah, because I don't know you. If I know you, it's easier to have just with anybody. Like when you know somebody, it's easier to have a conversation. I've known him for 10 plus years, so I can spark up a conversation like it's nothing. I know what he likes. He knows what I like. I know what he doesn't like. I mean, we're big sports fans. He likes OU. I like Texas. So, like, it's just easy to, like, yeah.
Let's fucking go, baby.
It's just easy to just talk to him because I know what he likes. And we talk mainly about sports all day when we text. And it's just different stuff about OU, different stuff about Texas, different stuff about the Michigan thing going on right now. Just different things. So, it's a lot easier to talk to somebody, in my opinion, when you know him versus when you don't know him. But I'm very blessed to be a people person, and I've always been that way, and I get that from my dad. My dad can go talk to a wall and have a whole conversation, and I've been like that my whole life. No, if a stranger, like, I have a vivid memory of, like, we went to Hooters to watch a UFC fight because there's no cover charge, and there's a random guy next to me, and the whole time just talking to him. I'm like 12 years old, 13 years old. It's a random guy. I'm just talking about UFC the whole time, and I've just always been like that. That's where I get it from, but it's crazy too because I'm the biggest introvert that you'll ever meet, but you wouldn't get that vibe because I seem like an extrovert. Yeah,
most introvert, extroverted person I ever met in my life. It makes no sense, but it works, you know. So
yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I'm blessed in that I've always been a people person, so it's always been easy for me to make conversation because I'm very different too because the amount of things that I like, you wouldn't like expect it. Like, I just like different things from just random places. I'm just like, oh, that's cool. Like, it'll be like, I like anime. I like rap music. I like baseball. I like gaming. I like shoes. Like, just from different areas. But you just like, knowing me, you wouldn't expect it from me. So I feel like I'm able to relate to different people from different areas just because I like so many different things. And I have so many different forms of friends. And then I feel like if I brought all my friends together, would it mesh very well? Just because they're all each groups of friends are completely different.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I've always been also. My dad's also one of the best people I've ever met in my life. He makes every single person he's talking to feel like the most important person in the room, and it's very cool to see.
Yeah. It's also makes it easier for the other person too.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because it's not like we're not sitting here in an awkward silence, not knowing what to say.
For sure. Like, I think that's always been like a great skill that I've also had too, is just being able to, like, I mean, when I first met you, like, just talk to you, enjoy the conversation, and I don't know, like, I've always been able to talk to people, which it helps a lot with this. And I talk to him about it all the time. Because people are like, oh, like, you're good at talking to someone you don't know. And I'm like, I don't know if it's because I'm sure the podcast has helped a little bit, but I think it was just kind of something that we're both good at, I think. And then it just kind of, snowballed and compounded. So
yeah, that's interesting. I'm an extrovert, definitely, but I have extreme social anxiety. And so, like, there's probably a lot of comics around Austin who think that I'm just like a dick because I go into like clubs and stuff, and I'm usually pretty shy because I don't know most of the people around me. And so I might kind of seem like a dick or something, but I'm honestly just having social anxiety. And my biggest thing that's helped me with that is once I start talking to someone, I just put all my attention onto them. And that just kind of gets rid of it for me. It's something I actually learned in my acting school. When you're acting, if you have all your focus on the other person, it's a lot harder to have a bad performance because you're just so in the moment and you're just responding to what they're giving you. And so that's what, if I'm feeling uncomfortable in a situation, I'll try and just put all my attention on who I'm talking to.
It's crazy you do stand-up, but you have social anxiety.
Oh, there are a lot of comedians.
Really?
Who have
That's probably how it's just easier for them.
Yeah, a lot of us are awkward, man. Yeah. Like, it's a thing, but.
I guess I would say I'm kind of like your dad. And I feel like that's the reason it's easy for me to spark conversation is because, like, I genuinely, like, enjoy meeting new people and, like, talking to new people and, like, hearing their background. The other thing is, too, is, like, you also never know who you're going to meet is the other thing. And, like, if you don't talk to somebody, like, you don't know who they know. You don't know who they are. You don't know how much they can help you or, like, if it's your next boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, the best friend, like, you just never know who they are. And, like, until you talk to them, you're not going to know. But I generally enjoy, like, getting to know people.
Yeah, same here. For me, I've noticed as soon as I get past that initial like high, then it's like pretty much gone after that. Because I do love meeting new people. Like I love having wild conversations with Uber drivers.
Yeah.
I've heard some crazy stories from Uber drivers.
You hear some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But they also see probably the most crazy stuff because they're always on the road or like getting drunk people, whatever the case is.
Yeah. When I was in LA, I would have these Uber drivers.
Oh, that's the place probably.
Yeah. Like I was talking to one guy, he's this old man. And he was like, yeah, he's like, I did all the like visual effects for like movies back in the day. So like if there was like, you know, like Christopher Nolan uses like models instead of CGI. He like made those. And
That's
so
cool.
He was telling me, he's like, yeah, he's like, I have so many residuals off the movies I've done. He's like, I just do this 2 times a week to give my wife a day to herself, and so I can meet new people.
That's dope. Yeah, because Christopher Nolan has some great films, so he's probably making good money off those.
Yeah, well, this guy didn't do it for Christopher Nolan, but he did.
He just did that stuff like that.
Dude, he almost did Star Wars. He said he read the Star Wars script and thought it was the stupidest movie he's ever read and nothing's going to happen with it. And he was like, that was one of the bigger mistakes I've made.
That's crazy. But it just goes to show you how successful he still is to like not do Star Wars and just do Uber 2 days a week just to do it.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
Crazy.
He's a cool guy. He was a really fun conversation.
That's your Star Wars. He's a big Star Wars guy.
For sure.
What do you think of the new ones?
The new ones, they're not as bad as people think or like say they are. They're not great, but they're not, I don't know, like the last one I thought was like a good way to tie that series up with a bow. I was entertained. It was, it was whatever. The first one was, I'm trying to think. Oh shit. The first one was decent. The second one was just kind of dumb. You could tell it was like a setup movie, but understandable. I don't know. They're not like awful, but I think for me, the thing I do like with Disney taking over Star Wars is all the little spinoffs and like all the little stuff that they're doing to fill in the massive Star Wars universe that we weren't getting. Like you're getting like more of like the animated stuff from Disney, like and their Pixar and all them, and then you're also getting just more individual character stuff. Like you weren't getting that prior, and I don't think you would have got that if George Lucas was still owning it all. You probably would have got better movies, but I also don't think it would have got extended. I think it would have just stayed where it was at.
I like the shows for it. I think the shows are really good, but I don't like the movies for it. I don't know. I guess,
but I think that's what I'm saying. I think most people for the movies they just go into it with a negative perception off rip. To be honest,
I'm one of those fans because like when I'm watching Star Wars, like I expect Star Wars. I like going back in the day, like you saw people's like arms getting chopped off, you saw legs getting chopped off, like Anakin. But like from what I remember, they don't really show that in Disney because it's like Disney.
Yeah. See, for me, the first 6. Like, obviously, the original and then the Anakin trilogy. Mm-hmm. Those, I was obsessed with those growing up. Yes. And I just felt like once Disney took over, they lost their edge.
Definitely. I remember, like, I just remember being a kid, like, when episode 3 came out, it was just, like, it was insane.
Dude, I saw it, like, 10 times.
10 times, like a lot.
So obsessed. All our friends would show up to class with, like, lightsabers. Like,
what's your favorite one out of the 6?
My favorite one is definitely the last one.
Really?
Yeah. I really enjoy... I'm a huge fan of movies. Movies are like my sports.
Me too. I like movies a lot.
I follow movies the way like people follow sports. I obsess over every aspect of it. And I love the way you watch Anakin turn to the dark side. And the entire time you're like... Even as like a 10-year-old, I was like, shit. I might do the exact same thing if, like, I thought I was going to be able to save the person I love more than anything in the world. And then, obviously, the fall of the Andes, he couldn't save her.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, I was trying to remember which one that was, because I don't, like, remember them in order. 3. But, like, if you say, like, talk about them, I go, okay, I remember what that was.
It's the 6th movie, episode 3. Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
Revenge of the Sith.
My favorite is Empire Strikes Back, episode 5.
That's a good one.
Oh, that is a great one.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
When Luke Skywalker came out in the black, I was like, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
The black fit and the green lightsaber.
The Hoth battle, like...
Yeah.
What's the one when they fight... is it General Grievous? Is that his name?
That's episode 3.
Yeah, that's
Episode, yeah, okay, yeah, that's probably my favorite. Just because the whole flow of that movie.
There's just a lot going on, but the thing is too. This is why I think people going to the Disney ones with like a negative perception is because when the prequel trilogies came out, people didn't like those movies.
Yeah,
Like, especially like episode 1 and 2. Like those are some of the worst like rated Star Wars movies by fans.
I love them.
Even though I love them,
yeah,
but you know, I'm just saying like
we
the
were
people
kids
that
also.
the people that grew like my dad and stuff, like he liked them all right, but he was like, oh, these aren't like the ones I grew up on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know why Samuel L. Jackson, Mace Windu, has a purple lightsaber?
I remember telling him this story, but I probably forgot. It was
It's a funny story.
yeah, I know he like I forgot. You tell it because you probably know it.
So George Lucas is showing him like the edits of the lightsaber battle scenes, and in Attack of the Clones, there is that giant fight in like the arena, and like, all the Jedis are down there. Samuel L. Jackson's like, I can't see what I'm doing. He's like, I can't. He's like, is that me? He's like, you know what? He's like, is there a purple lightsaber? And like, no one has a purple lightsaber. He goes, I have a purple lightsaber now. I want to be able to watch myself during the fights. Give me a purple lightsaber. And when Samuel L. Jackson asks for a purple lightsaber,
Yeah, you're giving him a purple lightsaber.
Yeah.
What's that YouTube account you follow?
It was like Star Wars Theory or Jedi Theory. It was like it's like a Star Wars like lore account. Like
Do you follow them on YouTube?
It's like they just go into depth about everything, like stuff they don't talk about, stuff they talk about in the books. Like I talked to him, like Jedi stances, as nerdy as this is, like Obi-Wan and Anakin, like the reason why that the fight was like even like a stalemate is because Anakin is like an aggressive stance, aggressive like lightsaber Jedi, and Obi-Wan's like straight defensive. So like just like it's a perfect like match, and it's like stuff like that. Like yeah, it's like nerdy and stuff, but it's like cool though. Like it's like, oh, that makes sense. That's why it was like that, you know?
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, I like so many different things because like I'm a big Harry Potter fan, and I guess it's the first time I'm saying it to him, but like I know that like Star Wars people would give the work to the Harry Potter people.
We're always arguing. He's like,
but I always tell him like,
wizard.
bro,
like, no,
a wizard would fuck up a Jedi. And he was like, no, they would not. He goes into this whole thing.
That's a good argument.
He thinks that a Jedi would fuck up a wizard, and I really think they would, but I always like to mess with them like a wizard would.
Because here's the question, though. So, like, I originally probably say a Jedi would fuck up a wizard, too, but what if they just hit him with the death curse immediately?
Dude, got a point
yeah,
there.
but I just feel like, I don't know, I'm just like, they have the Force, so I'm like, to me, that's like magic. Like, that's equal. And then they're way better in combat.
Okay, but what about this? Voldemort versus a Jedi.
Voldemort.
I think the average wizard would get smoked by a Jedi.
But Voldemort versus Sidious, or like versus
All you gotta
like,
do is hit him with the death. I guess could you block it with your lightsaber?
you know, because like Sidious
that
is
would be
like
pretty hard.
the Sith Lord.
Yeah.
You know?
Or dude, okay, Grievous might fuck him up because Grievous is a robot.
That's true.
Can't hit him with
you
the
can't
death
hit him
spell.
with the.
That's true.
Or maybe R2 is the one who survives.
C-3PO.
That's crazy. Is it hard for you to like watch movies, or is it like
No, I love movies. I've been obsessed with movies since I was a little kid.
not as hard as in like you can't watch them, but more hard as in like since you've been in acting school and like you kind of know more of the behind the scene things, or like when it's you've also edited, so like cuts and all that. So it's like, is it in that way? Is it harder for you to watch movies?
It's hard for me to watch bad ones, for sure. One thing that really bothers me that most people don't notice in movies is bad writing, like overly expositional writing, or people are saying things in sentences to explain to the audience what's going on, but that's never how you would talk if you were in a real conversation. So that bothers me a lot.
What are, I guess, your top 3 movies?
Oh, that's a really good question. In no particular order, The Departed.
It's a good movie.
I love that movie, and it has one of the biggest holes in the plot out of any movie I've ever seen, but it's still one of my favorites. Leonardo DiCaprio is my all-time favorite actor.
He's phenomenal.
I love him. So Departed is up there. Oh, Zoolander has such a special place in my heart. The first movie I ever saw was Titanic. My mom brought me to the theater when I was like a baby.
It's a great movie.
And my
Long as
sister
hell.
had to leave the theater because she was like crying, and she was like 2 or 3. And my mom said, would only cry if she took me out of the theater. And then as soon as I went back in, I was like mesmerized. So But the first comedy I ever saw when I was like 4 years old was Zoolander. And so I find that so funny. Owen Wilson's one of my favorites. I really like hard-hitting comedies like Tropic Thunder. That is such a great movie. It's so geniusly written. And then this is kind of corny, but Crazy Stupid Love, super high on my list.
I heard that was a
movie.
great movie.
It's a great movie. If it wasn't called Crazy Stupid Love, a lot more men would watch it.
Probably.
Yeah.
Did you watch?
I do like this movie. I've seen this.
What's the Asian one?
Crazy Rich Asians?
Yes. Did you watch that one?
I started watching it on an airplane. Was very entertained by the first 20 minutes, but then we landed and I just never picked it up.
Never
again.
picked it up. That's I like that one. That was a good one.
My mom, she was watching that movie like 10 times in 1 year when it first came out. She loves that movie.
Did you watch what's the movie called?
What, the one that just came out?
Yeah.
Oh, the one that won like 9 Oscars.
Oppenheimer?
No.
Nah, Everywhere.
I don't know like the whole thing.
all at once.
Everything, Everywhere, all at once.
Yeah,
Yes.
that
Dude,
movie.
I haven't watched it yet. I really need to watch it. I think
Yeah.
I'm gonna like.
I haven't watched
join
it
with
yet.
A couple
Yeah.
friends and just
Dude,
lose my
it's
shit.
like from just like the filmmaking aspect, it's just like a lot. Like it's definitely overwhelming to somebody. I feel like to the average viewer, because like I watched it with my girlfriend and she thought it was cool, but I don't think she like was as because she was like, oh, it was pretty good, and I was like, that movie was like one of the best movies I've seen. And she was like, really? I was like, yeah, but I think I was just looking at it more so of like the filmmaking perspective, all the editing, like, and then the acting was obviously really good and the plot was good. It was entertaining. And I was just like, this is just like a cinema masterpiece, you know?
Yeah. So one of my favorite movies is Eternal Summer of the Spotless Mind, Jim Carrey movie, and I've heard that Everything Everywhere All at Once is a very similar vibe of kind of a non-linear, or not non-linear, but like very like just crazy outside of like the regular web of reality.
Yeah.
I really love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So my favorite actor has like changed like 3 times. It was Tom Hardy.
I love Tom Hardy. He's on the Mount Everest of actors, in my opinion.
It was Tom Hardy, and then it went to Leonardo. Once I saw, I like Leonardo, but once I saw The Revenant, and then once I saw The Great Gatsby, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
he's him, and he's just so versatile. He could play anything. And then right now, it's Ryan Gosling.
I love Ryan
I
Gosling.
love
Yeah,
Ryan
I like
Gosling.
Ryan
So
Gosling.
everyone you named are all in like my top 5.
The top 5,
I love-
yeah. I love Ryan Gosling. And he's someone else that is so versatile. And then my list is changing. My favorite movie of all time is still Goodfellas.
Oh, that's definitely up there for me.
And then I think number 2 is probably La La Land.
That's a great movie.
I love La La Land. That's such a, and talk about a movie that's like perfect. Like the writing is perfect. The actors are perfect for it. Just the way they just made the movie flow was perfect.
That fight scene between them when he's saying how he's going on tour again and it turns into that is like a masterclass in acting. Like that is
They
such
did a
good,
great job. I feel like Emma Stone's very underrated.
She's amazing.
She's great.
She's so good.
And then another, I think, because I watched it when I was younger, but I didn't like really. I watched it in theater with my dad, but I didn't really understand it. Then I revisited it again way later. But I think my number 3 overall favorite movie now is Shutter Island.
That's a great movie.
Really?
I still don't know. Like
It's it's a mind fuck. You have to like watch it a few times. Like, how is he? But then you like realize like, oh, that makes sense.
So, I mean, I guess if you haven't seen Shutter Island by now, we're not spoiling anything. But
Yeah.
like, so I've seen it like 4 or 5 times. I'm still not 100% sure he was crazy. He probably was.
It makes sense because like his kids are dead and his wife's dead, so it's like that would drive you crazy.
Yeah. That's
And it also makes sense because it's like,
but he was on the boat.
but they're, I guess,
Because
because it
them on the boat. Fuck yeah.
yeah,
That's a great movie.
it's a great movie. And then I guess another one that I really liked too was Interstellar.
Oh yeah. That's another
Yeah,
solid
Interstellar's
one.
good.
Yeah,
Have you seen The Gentleman?
That's
I need to
that's
watch
one
that
of my
movie.
favorites.
That movie is
Bro,
fire.
That is one of the best opening scenes to movie I've ever
Yeah.
seen where he's just like, in order to be the king, he's got to be the king. Like,
Yeah,
that's so fucking
that movie
hard.
was incredible, and it also had Sons of Anarchy is like one of my favorite like TV shows of all time. They had like Charlie Human, and he's one of the actors in it. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm locked in.
Fun fact about Sons of Anarchy, you know, it's based on Hamlet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
The whole, if
The
you
whole-
zoom
yeah.
out, it's all just the story arc of Hamlet.
Yeah.
That's cool. Did not know that.
Yeah.
One of my friends, or I haven't seen him in years, but someone I went to acting school with, his like stepdad was the creator of that show.
Wow.
And so he told me some cool stuff. But
Yeah.
That's dope. He's not on my list, and I don't know many movies besides X-Men, but after The Greatest Showman, I have a lot of respect for Hugh Jackman.
Oh, you want to see? Okay, so great Hugh Jackman movie, Prisoners with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yes. Fire.
It is
Fantastic.
I like Jake
Jackman's-
Gyllenhaal a lot too.
Me too.
Hugh Jackman's best performance, one of Jake Gyllenhaal's. But oh my God, it's so good.
I like Jake Gyllenhaal because he's another one who's very versatile. He could play a lot
Yeah.
of different roles.
Yeah.
I like him a lot too. But after I saw The Greatest Showman, I was like, Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, he's
nice.
he's in Guy Ritchie's The Covenant too.
That was a great movie. I
yeah.
just saw that.
Yeah. Guy Ritchie he's nice.
Guy
with
Ritchie's
it.
amazing.
Yeah.
I just put he hasn't finished it yet, but he started watching Tombstone. Just put one of our friends on Tombstone.
Oh, I haven't
For
seen
real?
that since I was a
Steve,
kid.
he's
never seen it?
He's never seen it.
Wow.
And
I've seen that movie way too many times.
Yeah, I love that movie.
I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I need to rewatch it.
And he was like, bro, like it starts off at 100. Because the opening scenes of just like them going to kill the Mexicans, the Cowboys going to kill the Mexicans at the church after that guy just got married. And then he was like, is like the movie like this? I was like, yeah. And then he got to like halfway and he was like, yeah, it's gas so far. That's probably like it's not like it's an all-time favorite, but I don't rank it like in my top 3 or whatever. But it's a classic that I always like.
That's how I feel
recommend people.
about that's how I feel about Gladiator. Like it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I wouldn't say it's like the best movie in my top, but it's like if it's on, I'm gonna watch it. It's like one of those like guilty. I wouldn't even say it's like a guilty pleasure because it's like this is one of those movies I'll always watch. Like a 8 Mile. Like it
Yeah.
was on I literally was on Netflix and I just put it on because I saw it. I was like, I'm gonna watch this just cause.
I feel that way about Troy.
Same. I'm like
a
that
good
with
one.
Troy too.
I'm
Troy's a
not
good
gay,
one.
dude, but Brad Pitt in a fucking fur. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Troy's a good one.
No doubt.
My favorite, probably they're coming out the new one. I feel like I always had this argument with you. But my favorite like trilogy was probably the newer version of the Apes.
I love
Yeah, that's one of my
those.
favorite trilogies too.
I was very impressed by those.
Because typically when you have like a number 2 or number 3, like the first one's always the best, and they just kind of fall off after that.
I thought
all 3 of those were amazing, and now
Yeah.
they're just making that new one.
Oh, I didn't know they were making.
They're making a new
They're
one.
making a
yeah.
new one. Yeah, it comes out next year.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I did see a trailer. For
Yeah.
that, actually.
Yeah. They're
Yeah.
making that new one, so I'm excited for that because
Oh, yeah.
all those movies were great.
Woody Harrelson's one of my all-time favorites. and
Woody
he
Harrelson's
was
very good.
amazing in those.
Yeah, he
Or
was in
only
the third
last
one, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because that was, I guess, the one where he was trying to go to war with the apes. Yeah, yeah, and he like made them slaves.
Yeah.
That was a great one. That's kind of it for me. I mean, I can go on and on
Yeah,
and on.
no
I mean,
doubt.
you're dope, and I know you said he had social anxiety, so I hope we made things very easy for you
Oh,
and
I
made
really
it comfortable.
enjoyed this.
Perfect. We love to hear that.
I don't really get it for stuff like this. It's when I'm in like situations with a lot of people I don't.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's
It
just, like,
makes
in public
sense.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
No, just I guess with the year almost ending, what are some goals you'd like to finish this year with, and then maybe some stuff for 2024?
Yeah, I definitely. So, one of my big goals is I've been writing, like I said, a lot of more longer form sketches with bigger casts. So I have a few of them written, and I want to get pretty much all of them ready to shoot, so I can shoot early next year, get those coming out, and then just do as much stand up as I possibly can. Obviously, like my number one goal is be a regular at the mothership, but baby steps. And so I'm just trying to put myself in situations where
Yeah.
I can make that a reality for me,
Yeah.
because I want to be doing comedy every single night, multiple times a night. And, you know, it's definitely possible with open mics, and I've done that for a long time, but I want to be doing, you know, a lot more like legit shows.
And make it like full time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ideally, I want to be a touring comedian. That's my dream job, is driving from city to city on a bus and just doing spots.
Yeah, that's fire.
I just found out it was called the Mothership. I didn't know it was
Great
called
club.
that. Yeah,
Great club.
yeah. When what Eli was on.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know it was called the Mothership.
Still haven't went because everything's always sold out every time I look.
So Sundays, set an alarm for 1:50 p.m.
Okay.
and then get multiple devices out, and right when it hits 2, that's when you get tickets.
Okay.
But it's a great club.
Rewind. Also, one of the I have like a separate, or I guess the only female actress. She's not the only one I like, but a big one I like is Melissa McCarthy.
Oh, she's great. She's really
I
funny.
love Melissa McCarthy. She's great. But before we hit this off, is there any shout outs you want to give or anything to us?
Yeah, just follow me on social media. I guess I'll look at the camera. I am Primal Daddy across all platforms. If you type that in, you will find me. Check out the sketches. There's more comedy content, more stand-up comedy content coming very soon. And yeah.
Yeah, perfect. As always, we're gonna have all his stuff down below in the description. Go give him a follow. Go give him a look. His stuff's funny. Follow him on Instagram. Subscribe to him on YouTube. We know we love the subscribes over here, so go subscribe to him on YouTube. Give a like, comment. You know the drill. But that'll do it from our boys over here at Opinionated. We'll catch y'all guys next time. Peace.
Peace.
Thank